Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Neotaku podcast. And today, we're ranking Hayao Miyazaki's films from worst to best. Today I'm joined by Lachlan Still, the Pedantic Romantic.
Hi, domo, virtual YouTuber, Pedantic Romantico desu.
What the fuck?
And Mirage Fan.
Hi.
Hi boys, it's David here. So the reason why I'm not in this episode is because I was asleep, because I had school the next day, and yeah, I just didn't want to mess up my sleeping schedule. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoy hearing the others talk about Tetsuro Araki Miyazaki Shinkai. Yeah, enjoy.
Okay, so let's get into this. We're going through chronological order, and then we're saying stuff.
Yeah, so just Hayao Miyazaki's main films here, none of the short films, nothing he's just written. His directorial filmography here. So there's 11 of them total, starting with Castle of Cagliostro in 1979.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Castle of Cagliostro is Lupin the Third film, and it's good.
I had it ranked 8 out of 11 for Hayao Miyazaki.
Really?
Yeah, and I should, I guess, note, there's some people who are more down or at least more mixed on Miyazaki, whereas I think all of his films are at least good and entertaining, so even the bottom of the list is, a fairly good spot to be in overall. But Castle of Cagliostro just doesn't really stand out enough to be too high on this list, for me.
Well, a lot of what has been recorded about Castle Cagliostro, it was his first real, jump into actually being, a serious head honcho for his work, so I'm not too surprised. While I'm a Lupin person, I honestly haven't seen Castle Cagliostro, but I have heard some mixed things about him. The literal only reason I haven't seen it yet is because I'm going through all the Lupin filmography, so...
Yeah.
Where
did you put it, Joji?
A solid 5 out of 11.
Ooh,
it's
good.
Probably it's one of my favorite Miyazaki films. I think for one he's actually made some bad and boring films, but
Really?
As a whole, I think he's overall good. Yeah.
Alright.
So overall, Castle of Cagliostro, it's Lupin. Miyazaki directed some of Lupin TV, and this carries that same appeal. It's very closely tied to the titular protagonist and his character as this sort of noble thief. Is a really fun sort of police versus criminal comedy action romp here.
It's a whole lot of fun, just like all of Lupin.
So
it's got gorgeous, what is this, Shinichiro Kobayashi backgrounds. Is he the master in the background of 40 years of animation?
Yes,
is that the guy?
Shinichiro.
I always
I wouldn't
forget his
be
name.
surprised.
But he did those backgrounds, and his trademark gorgeous hand-on style shows up here. Really captures that medieval architecture that makes up the Italian setting here. You couldn't ask for more out of an entertaining action comedy film, really.
Yeah, it's good. So the next one's Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind in 1984. I'm curious to hear what you two think of it first, because I have very strong feelings about this film.
Ooh. Where do you put it, Mirage?
So, I'm a very bad girl. I have never seen Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, mainly because it has bugs in it. And...
Oh, okay.
I'm not good at bugs. And
Makes sense.
I also have heard... Being that I'm from the Desu Death Brigade days, I watched the Desu Otaku video on Mononoke, and it's oh, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is just a bad Princess Mononoke. So, I'm just
Princess Nausicaa. My number 1 out of 11 ranked Hayao Miyazaki films. Boom.
Wait, really? You ranked it number 1?
Yes.
Well, I also ranked it number 1.
Yeah!
I think it is by far Miyazaki's best film. Like, yeah. Oh man, watching this movie is like better than sex.
Sell it to me, because I need to have a reason to watch a bug anime. So,
well, you need to watch Mushiuta first. Bug World. Yeah, hell yeah. But no, I really like the portrayal of environment in it. Like especially in the manga. And realistically, the manga for Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is probably one of the best out there. But like it's got such good atmosphere and just it's able to craft tension really well. It's great.
So for me, I will admit that I totally understand Nausicaa not being number 1 on a ton of lists, and the comparison to Princess Mononoke being somewhat unfavorable. Because in a number of ways, Mononoke handles a lot of the ideas Nausicaa is going for in a better, or at least a tighter manner. Nausicaa, for me, I'm not sure if it was the first Ghibli I watched, but when I watched a bunch of them as a kid, it's the one that stuck with me more than any other, because the atmosphere and overall aesthetic of the film is just utterly captivating. Some of the musical leitmotifs are the best in a Studio Ghibli work, which is an impressive feat. And the design of the world, from the sort of the environments themselves to the animals and bugs inhabiting them, it's just totally mystifying, evocative to an extreme degree, and as emotional as Hayao Miyazaki's human storytelling can and certainly often is, none of it matches up to the environmental storytelling, I think, in Nausicaa. And beyond that, it's from a more conventional storytelling perspective, really capable in its own right as well.
Yeah, it is. And, like, the other thing is, I'm a huge fan of Hakujuden, and out of all of his films, I actually feel like it's the closest to it, in terms of, like, how it fits, kind of like, yeah, Hakujuden was a big influence on him, and I think that this movie
just
just
for any audience members who may or may not be initiated, may want to explain Hakujuden in more detail, what exactly that is.
Oh yeah, so it's a film called The White Serpent, or in English distribution, it's The Panda and the White Serpent. And it is the film at which Hayao Miyazaki admits that he is deep down a waifu fag.
Yeah.
Yeah, the girl from Hakujiden was like a girlfriend for him when he had none, and it's a really like atmosphere-filled kind of film. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay.
And it inspired him to get into the industry, which ended up with him working at Toei, which is why he hates Mushi.
Yeah. Nausicaa's also significant for being one of the seminal works in the beautiful fighting girl lineage that Tamaki Saito sort of chronicles in his book of the same name. And she did sort of set the mold for these characters moving forward. But I think, looking over it, she's my favorite instance of it that Miyazaki's done. She benefits from being the main character here as opposed to someone like San. And she's just, she's a fantastic character. I've got some analysis of her lying around somewhere. But she's... Yeah. I mean, a bit of a Mary Sue, I guess you could say, or just a perfect protagonist. But the story is structured around her excellence in such a way that I think it really works.
Yeah, and then of course there's Hideaki Anno's cut of animation in this, which is just absolutely amazing. And like, it's amazing how he showcases individuality under the hands of, Miyazaki.
Yeah, definitely true. And in Miyazaki, even in his TV work, he'd always been excellent in getting just a high level of visual quality. And so whereas a lot of other anime production, I think, really progressed from the 80s in a number of eras, in a number of areas, Nausicaa was just at such a level that I'd say Ponyo was definitely like a step forward and an evolution, but until that point, Nausicaa could compete with any of Miyazaki's other films on just an animation level too, I think.
Yeah.
And I even really benefits from being older, because it's got that really gritty, older anime materials, hand-drawn aesthetic that benefits its mostly desert and then thick sort of jungle vegetation environments.
Which we don't really see anymore nowadays. Like,
Yeah.
we don't really see a lot of the older Ghibli work, like, aesthetic that much. It's a lot of the newer, like, sleeker, rounded kind of aesthetic.
Yeah. Also, Nausicaa was voted #1 lolly of 1984.
Yeah.
In some magazine.
Really?
So, Yeah, even though she's 18 years old, she was a #1 lolly.
Well, I mean, it was a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Miyazaki's first sort of original work, and I think, though various ideas he sort of ended up establishing as mainstays of his style in Nausicaa may have gotten refined in certain ways in successive films, Nausicaa is sort of a mix of all of those recurring ideas of Miyazaki's and the purest expression of them that we got.
Well,
Really just...
Yeah.
Go on.
I was just gonna say, just to kind of jump off from what I could say about this, is that from just seeing Nausicaa from afar, and everything else that Hayao Miyazaki has put onto his filmography, he has a very distinct way of presenting environment and the character of environment, rather, and the spaciousness of a world.
Yeah. It's a definitely read the manga one as well, though, with
Right.
Nausicaa. Because the manga is as beautiful, if not more so, than the actual film. Yeah.
Huh.
It's good.
Okay. So now Castle in the Sky.
Next up, Castle in the Sky. Did you watch this one, Mirage?
I've seen this not in a long time, though. So
where did you put it on your list?
I put... well, I'm gonna rate it out of 10s, so I'm gonna probably put like a 4.5 out of 10. One reason why is this may be a little superficial to most, so don't take it too seriously, but I got so bored I fell asleep while watching it.
That's not an uncommon complaint, actually, with this film.
Yeah, that's actually the same thing that I have with it, is that I watched it like a couple of years ago and I just found it boring and just, yeah.
Where did you put it, Joji?
It's currently like 11
Okay.
out of 11. Yeah.
Yep.
It's definitely the one that I think is his worst.
Well, I do think that one thing that really stands out, though, and that's the character of, I believe her name is Sheeta, correct? Like,
Yep.
The character of Sheeta and her evolution in, like, feminist narrative, rather, because, like, a lot of people have talked about that, and her cutting her hair, and, like, the whole thing she has to go through to complete the goal of the series, and, I mean, the movie. And, well, like, I don't care for this movie. I can respect a lot of the work that went into presenting the series, rather. God, the series, God, I'm just everywhere. I'm sorry. The movie, rather. Like, a lot of it's about her narrative rather than the main guys, which you see throughout Miyazaki's filmography. He likes to focus more on women than he does men, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, this one is rather interesting, because it's a fairly sort of by-the-books damsel in distress setup in many ways, but she's got a lot more agency and relevance throughout the film than you get in a lot of those.
Especially
so
for the 80s.
Interesting in that regard.
Like
she's always sort of in the narrative in a manner that's somewhat atypical, because a lot of times people in her role will be a bit more just out of the way and off to the side. So that's definitely cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I do have it 10 out of 11 myself. It is one of the more lukewarm receptions for a Miyazaki film, certainly, and I think that is just because it's a somewhat unremarkable action-adventure film. And I think it's still entertaining. Even this, I'd say, like, it's at least like 6 out of 10-ish range. It's visually fantastic, a totally capable narrative, just nothing of real particular interest outside of those robot dudes in the overgrown castle in the sky. Not a ton of that really evocative imagery that'll stick with you that Miyazaki's great at creating.
I think, like, while this I think while this movie is kind of lukewarm for Hayao, if it was on somebody else's list, it'd probably be pretty remarkable itself, just by the fidelity of it. And like, I don't know, like, it's just really kind of boring for Hayao standards.
When it came out in 1986, I believe this was a fairly successful in terms of box office. And this was the first true Studio Ghibli production. Nausicaa was produced before they were founded, and then they sort of got the rights to it. So this did help establish them. So that's good, at least.
Yeah.
And I'd rank it below Castle Cagliostro, another sort of action-adventure style film, because Cagliostro is just less of a by-the-numbers, like, very bog standard action adventure plot, and it's got a bit more personality. The characters in Castle in the Sky are sufficiently endearing. The pirate crew especially is standout, but they, especially the main two there, don't have a ton of charm or personality to them.
One thing I do just want to say is that ranking these movies is kind of like ranking Kendrick's albums, right? And I definitely feel that Castle in the Sky is Section 80. That's just my reception towards it.
I mean, I like
a lot of people like
all
Section
of Kendrick's. 80. I'd say the lowest of the lows of Kendrick's discography are above the lowest of the lows of Hayao Miyazaki's filmography, probably.
Yeah, true. But I mean, like, he's comparative across another medium.
Yeah.
This is out of curiosity. You guys can cut this out if you want to, but are we also going to be covering Isao Takahata work?
No, we're just doing the suggestion was Ghibli, but we figured that might be running too long, so we can
do an Isao one later on. I'd love to do Isao, but
yeah, we'll definitely, even if it's more of just like a the other Ghibli directors, everyone else, in another podcast.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Anyhow.
Moving on, we've got what is this, 1988 Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro.
Yay! Something I do have a remarkable memory on, because I love this movie, and the cultural influence especially, like, very much intrigues me about My Neighbor Totoro. I think I watched, it was Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, then Ponyo, and then I saw My Neighbor Totoro. And this was also, I watched it the double feature style.
Nice.
Because it was my first time watching Grave of the Fireflies, and to be really honest, I really enjoyed this as a lift up. The thing about My Neighbor Totoro that really sticks out to me is, as somebody who hates Alice in Wonderland, I love this movie. a lot of My Neighbor Totoro has a lot of the elements that the original Lewis Carroll story has, but it's told in a much better, much more interesting package, I think, rather. I like the wonder of children and the struggles that the two sisters have in acclimating to this life that they're living. Being that I have a little sister myself, and like I can totally sit in the same place.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know this, what Mirage was referencing there was the fact that Totoro, when it came out in theaters, it released at the same time as Isao Takahata's Grave of the Fireflies, and they were a double feature, so you'd go to see the two of those together, which is quite the emotional whiplash there.
Which I know we're not talking about Isao, but on my top 3, Grave of the Fireflies is number 1, legitimately, in Ghibli's work. But that's a whole different story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
So
I ranked Totoro 7th out of 11, and sort of the situation surrounding that is the fact that around this mid-range, the 7 to 4, it's very tricky, and they're all like 8 out of 10s and above probably, and so you could really go either way. It's very small margins here, but Totoro is a really fascinating work for me in terms of storytelling and sort of storytelling conventions. Totoro has no antagonist, no plot, there's a whole list you can do of just like elements of a story that are sort of considered to be pillars of what you construct a story out of. And Totoro rejects those entirely. There's some great articles about Totoro and what it means for storytelling, and it as a children's film, it's really fascinating because it doesn't concern itself with trying to just construct this very simple, consumable narrative, and boil down our main storytelling structures just into a simpler, more childlike form. It really sort of gets into the headspace of children, and allows itself to meander and construct a story in the way kids construct their own stories, which is this sort of inattentive snapping from idea to idea, meandering, just procession of events. It's really creative and inspired, I think.
Well, definitely one thing that sticks out to me, though, about Totoro, specifically about the story, is the light nature of it, in contrast to the double feature. But again, another thing for another day. But the way in which I believe Jessie Otaku brought this up in her series, her back analysis, but about how these characters could actually literally be in the same place as the characters from Grave of the Fireflies, but they're not. And
yeah, it's a matter of context. Yeah, situation,
and the time period that they're in, especially it gives you a sense of time, I suppose. That's the thing about especially the more grounded works of Miyazaki, is that a lot of the stories not only have these large pieces and soundscapes, but you can actually put them into a time span. Whereas stuff like Princess Mononoke and let's say Spirited Away are kind of removed from that, or Nausicaa or whatnot.
Where did you rank this, Joji, my boy?
Yeah,
it's around that low end 8-ish,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 8 out of 11,
I think it's important to also note the cultural influence this had on not only Ghibli itself, but the toy industry in Japan. And
oh my god, there's so much Totoro merch.
I've got one little Easter egg in the background of some of my vlogs. You can see him hanging up. Even in the US, it's certainly one of probably the most productive source of iconic imagery for merchandising purposes, this film.
Yeah.
Well, you can just chuck Totoro in any pose, and there you go. You can sell it as something.
Like, one thing I was just gonna say, like, for Japan at the time when this movie came out, it was bolstered by its toy sales, and a lot of that came into actually helping Studio Ghibli in a large way, like one of the largest. It actually really blockbustered them out into the forefront, which is why, like, Kiki's Delivery Service and stuff like later on into the filmography have a lot more toys. So,
and if we want to move into Kiki now, it's significant because it was the first real complete breakout hit. Things like Totoro and Spirited Away are probably more enduring in the US, but in Japan, Kiki was wildly successful, a huge cultural impact. Still sort of remembered and cherished to this day. They rebroadcast it on TV relatively recently for some special event. This one established Ghibli as a real dominant animation powerhouse over in Japan.
Yeah, and like, I can remember when I was in Japan and I saw a ton of Kiki's Delivery Service, like, merchandise.
Wow.
Like, it's, yeah, there is actually, like, a significant amount of merchandise for it. Like, comparative to Totoro, it's not very much, but, like, it actually has a lot of staying power over there. You know, there's stuff like cards with it on it, you know, postcards, things like that, you know, seem disposable on some level, but, you know, they clearly, you know, make enough money to sustain a micro economy of themselves.
I think it's particularly a thing for us about perspective, because well, I know that you're Australian, and I know that Locke lives on the east side, and I live on the west side. We've lived mostly in these Eurocentric kind of areas, whereas, like, we don't really see a lot of Kiki's Delivery Service merchandise. Well, there's, like, a lot in Japan, and I've seen some in China. It's a little bit of a thing.
Yeah. When I was in China, there was actually some, like, Kiki's Delivery Service stuff. Mostly in Shenzhen, probably bootleg stuff, but, you know, like, there was a decently significant amount at these stores that were there.
One specific reason I'd like to bring up in why I don't think that Kiki's Delivery Service is as big of a deal as it is over in Japan over here is because in 1989 we were going through the whole, like, we didn't hit the witch craze, I think, and on top of that, we've lived in a very red letter kind of society where in some Christian households witchcraft was considered satanic and wasn't allowed for kids to consume that kind of media. So a lot of that could also be a big thing as why
Yeah. And just as with all these previous films, we didn't get Kiki at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get it until 1998.
Yeah.
So sort of
in the US.
with Princess Mononoke getting brought over, and then we got a bunch of the Miyazaki and other Ghibli films. So we didn't have that time and place effect. But you're right in that witches were and continue to be pretty big in Japan. They just like the aesthetic, and sort of ties in with magical girls as well, which were rising at the time.
Well, hello?
Hey, you're back.
Hello?
Were you going to say something?
I was going to say that, well, it's especially a thing. I think the Kiki's Delivery Service really stands out in Mahou Shoujo, especially in the way rather that it it presents a typical grounded mahou shoujo. We don't see a lot of that nowadays, especially. It's very classic in the formatting and the way it tells its story, rather, in that kind of, like, sect. We don't get transformation sequences. We don't get any of that. We just get a girl who's riding around on a broom with her cat, and she's having a fun time. She's delivering shit.
Yeah.
We don't get that kind of mahou shoujo anymore. It's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, there's it's sort of the phenomenon where anime draws influence from itself, and so a lot of mahou shoujo nowadays is being mahou shoujo and sort of all the aesthetic trappings that come with that.
Yeah, like
And
Super
so
Sentai
there's a
mahou
lot
shoujo.
going on.
Yeah,
Whereas
definitely.
Kiki is just sort of a real human girl who is a witch who's got these magical elements going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of ranking, I put this at 5 out of 11. Kiki is just a thoroughly charming protagonist. Can't not fall in love with her. And the town that she ends up taking residence in is really brought to life. And I will admit that there's sort of just something there that draws me to this film, because looking at it critically, there isn't much here that's too stand out. None of the supporting cast, not the overarching narrative. But it all the elements just come together in a really effective manner. And it's a completely endearing film, all in all.
Another thing, rather, about just Kiki in particular is her struggle through the series. Not the fucking series, God. Throughout the movie, she deals with the concept of transitioning into adulthood, and I like that through being a witch and going through her training, through a new set of training, rather. It's very interesting, mainly because I think I'm going through that period in life myself at this moment.
Yeah.
Another thing also is the idea of wish fulfillment in narrative, and I believe Hayao Miyazaki said himself that the magic in the movie has always been in his movies a means to fulfill the dreams of young girls, and Kiki can't use that for wish fulfillment. So what is she using her magic for? What's the importance of the magic in the narrative, rather? Is it just a fairy tale Is it just a fairy tale element with, like, black cats and stuff like that, or is it deeper than that?
Yeah. Where did you rank it, Joji?
3. 3. It's really cute. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Me being me being someone who spent a lot of time in China and stuff, I grew to love Kiki's delivery service.
Number 1 lolly of 1989, Kiki.
She actually, I'd be really impressed.
I don't
Possibly.
know.
It was the biggest
I'm just
commercial
guessing.
here.
I'm assuming.
Actually, no. By this time, Lolita anime had come out, or Nikatsu video.
Oh yeah.
You want to call it. So there were already better lollies.
Well,
already.
they aren't winning the popularity polls though. Those are inherently more niche.
Yeah, true.
I do know Nausicaa won it 3 years in a row or something. I think just because she was such an enduring lolly icon.
Yeah, because it was the manga for the first 2 years, and then the film.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Moving into the early 90s now, we've got Porco Rosso, a film Hayao Miyazaki. He was commissioned to make a short film that could be played on Mediterranean flights, I believe. And then he ended up developing it into a feature-length movie, and we got Porco Rosso.
Huh. That's pretty interesting. This is the first time we really see anything about flight in his filmography and the importance of aircrafts.
Castle
we
in
see
the
a whole
sky.
lot of fight.
I guess.
And we also
kind of.
see a lot
And
of
Nausicaa,
flight
the
in
glider.
Nausicaa, yeah.
Really?
This is where you're not having
Kiki's
seen
the
enough of the
broom.
Miyazaki movies comes in, Mirage.
Okay, this is... I think, though, seriously, this is where it more takes a grounded, realistic approach, though.
Yeah, this is where he starts
Yeah.
doing actual airplanes and revealing himself not just to be interested in flight as a concept, because even, Kiki had that. He clearly loves it
The
conceptually.
sky.
But he's a nitty-gritty plain otaku. He loves the mechanics and the
Yeah.
history and the actual real-life applications of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got this
yeah.
one rated number 3 out of 11.
Huh.
It's
I have it rated.
one of the I think more prominent elitist sleeper picks. I think it's on Digi's pretentious 3x3.
Yeah. It's the most boring taste in anime, bro.
But Porco is just such a brilliant character. He's just like a grumpy, jaded, 40-year-old man pig guy. But he's got a heart of gold. I really feel like he's channeling Miyazaki himself in his characterization there. And he's completely adorable. Even more so than Kiki, I'd say.
I'm personally of the camp, though, that, if we're going to start pulling into dub versus sub, I personally like the dub a lot more of Porco Rosso than the sub.
I don't think I've actually seen, and I'm normally a pretty strong sub-elitist, but I watched most of these when I was a kid and thus got used to these voices, and they're generally pretty competently done, at least. I've only seen the dub for all these Ghibli films here, and yeah, Porco Rosso is definitely no complaints about the voice work there.
We're lucky to have the Disney Tokugawa, correct? Agreement where a lot of the movies were brought over here through Disney, and we had some of the similar voice actors, but we also had
real voice actors.
We had very good voice actors, surprisingly enough.
Well, I mean, they hired real actors. That's the key.
Take that.
Oh,
Hey, Spike
real
Spencer,
life
fucking
form.
fight me, cunt.
There's definitely parts in the dub filmography, if you're going to watch the whole thing in dub, that are kind of weak. But nevertheless, there are some great voice performances, which goes into the next one, but we're gonna wait. So,
where would you rank Porco Rosso?
me, it's kind of down lower in the list. I give it a solid 6 or 7 out of 10. I don't know. I can respect it definitely as a narrative, but I don't really connect with Porco as he is, and
I like my grumpy G-san.
I do like a lot of the scenery, but a lot of my interest in it is very superficial. So
Yeah. What about you, Joji?
Haven't seen it. This is actually the one film that I've been meaning to get around to. But it's
I bet you'd
hard to find good encodes.
You'd like it. It's a character that I think would appeal to you, because he's just so fantastic. Sort of lecherous, but puts that on to a greater degree than he actually possesses it. And I think that's the charm, the gap moe, if you will. The fact that he's got these proclivities to a degree, but he really plays them up because he's invested in that image, and sort of insecure about coming off as being as genuine as he actually is.
Sounds cool. We'll get on to the next one, though.
Yeah, Princess Mononoke.
Mononoke. Ooh.
alright. So when I was a little girl, a little wee babu, before I got into the animus, I got into Disney movies because I've always been into animation. And one thing that really stuck out to me was Beauty and the Beast. I got to see Beauty and the Beast on its re-release in IMAX theaters over here, which is the really, really big screens. I have vivid memories of that trip where I actually broke down sobbing and left the theater early because the screen was too scary. But that's another story in its entirety. I then ended up watching. I know. I then ended up watching Beauty and the Beast at home on a VCR as a consolation prize. And I've always been a really big fan of just French fairy tales and literature and whatnot, and especially with Beauty and the Beast. That movie still stands up for me to this day. Fucking throw the live action in the fucking garbage.
Oh, no.
I will fight you in the streets.
Fight Emma Watson in the streets.
I will freaking punch Hermione Granger ass out of this fucking room. I love Beauty and the Beast, and that only exacerbates my love for Princess Mononoke, but for very different reasons. A lot of Princess Mononoke as a movie really sticks out as probably one of the best interpretations of setting and theme, I think, in modern Japanese cinema next to Akira. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
This movie took fucking years of conceptualization and work to even get on screen. And this is all the respect I need for fucking Hayao Miyazaki to even consider him a master in his craft.
I'd definitely say, and I think Spirited Away gives it some competition in this regard, but I'd say it's the tightest Miyazaki film. The themes, and especially the setting playing into those themes, as you mentioned, just conveyed so brilliantly, so deftly, handled with a great degree of nuance. Both sides there really sympathetic, and a tragic edge to everything because of the fact that both sides have a legitimate cause to be fighting for. And then you add in, of course, your prerequisite Miyazaki aesthetic brilliance, and it's just a fantastic narrative experience through and through.
I think while Porco Rosso starts presenting this problematic kind of nature of rather people and the feelings of people, I think Princess Mononoke turns it to an 11. A lot of the factions in the movie are you can get behind everybody. You can get behind the animals in the forest because they're just trying to protect their land. They were here first, so why should they have to move over for the humans? I can connect with Aboshi, and Aboshi's like, because she's not doing this because she wants to ruin the forest and she's a usual bad guy. She wants to literally help the lepers and help the people in her village.
She's giving jobs to prostitutes and lepers. Like,
yeah.
You can't.
And then you can get behind Ashitaka? Yeah, Ashitaka.
Yeah.
Ashitaka's reason, because to be honest, he has the least reason to be invested in this. He's literally been banished from his village. The only reason he has to legitimately get into the widespread part of it is because he has to figure out what the fuck is happening with his goddamn arm. Because he's dying. And out of everything, like, everybody has multifaceted reasons for why they like it. There's no good, there's no bad. And that's really important for especially the themes of the movie, which focuses around the environment, how we treat nature, and rather where we stand in relationship to those who have inherited the earth for centuries, to us who have come and become upstarts, rather, and have a duty to take care of that nature. Yeah.
Oh no. We'll cut this out. What was I gonna say? Alright, okay. This is one of the Miyazaki films that stuck with me the most, alongside Nausicaa, for one scene in particular, which is Ashitaka when he's carrying San out of the town there, and he gets shot in the back as he's leaving, and he sort of continues on relatively unfazed. And now he's just got this hole in his back. He's oozing blood. He opens the gate with one hand. I watched it relatively young, and that stuck with me as just like this remarkably badass moment, like totally jaw-dropping, and really even blowed up in my memory. Sort of the way I had recollected it was this gaping hole in the center of his stomach, where really it's just like a moderately sized bullet wound there, as he's trailing blood. But it's just such a powerful image that it stuck in my memory and got exaggerated like that. And there's tons of just majestic moments like that that'll stick with you.
Yeah. I don't want to take back the reins yet. I want to let Joji talk if he has anything to say, rather, about Mononoke.
Well, okay, yeah, I do have a couple of things to say about it. I've seen it on the silver screen at the Cult Classic playing theater.
I'm so fucking jealous of you.
Oh my god, if this is not one of the best looking films to watch on the silver screen.
I'm so jealous of you right now.
It is wonderful. Yeah. As for ranking for me, it's obviously number 2. You know?
Yep, same.
Yeah. I think Locke and I are on the same wavelength
Yeah.
when it comes to this particular brand of Miyazaki films.
It's my number 1 if we don't count the Isao Takahata movies. So,
Right.
yeah, I don't think I have to really say that. Big surprise, Olivia! I'm going to try and link this in chat, so if I don't find it, you guys can cut this out, but I'm going to link the Jessie Otaku video about Princess Mononoke. I feel like a lot of her points, a lot of people deserve to at least hear them. And I also very much urge people to watch this movie at least 7 times. I'm not kidding.
7 times.
The movie has so many
times as I've watched Ava.
This movie has so many eccentricities to it, and it's like you get something new out of it every time you watch the movie.
One of the great things about it is I think that it is fairly forthright and straightforward, so you can grasp a good deal of it on your first watch, and certainly after the second have most things cleared up. But it's such a thoroughly entertaining experience that you can also sort of rewatch it ad infinitum, and you can continue to derive enjoyment out of it.
Yeah. I don't remember how good Princess Mononoke was in the box offices in Japan. I think I actually heard that it wasn't the greatest, but I know for sure that over here, it's definitely had a lasting impact a bit more, in rather the messages it tells, and not only its dub, which this is something I stand by, and I know a lot of people can give me a lot of flack for this. I think you should watch this movie in dub, hands down. You don't watch the sub, watch the dub, because the dub is fantastically casted, and it's one of literally the best anime dubs in existence. Period.
I think part of the Western success is in that sort of more action-oriented films have a bit of a stronger appeal here, especially a lot of the time for anime, and of course it was the one that was initially brought over when Disney started doing that. And then conversely, maybe because it's slightly less age-appropriate, that would contribute to it not being as broadly accessible over in the Japanese box office.
I know that a lot of people feel as if some of the gore and violence is a little over the top for some people, but then again, I don't know. I think it really adds to a lot of the animation quality, actually, funny enough. So
yeah, I mean, the two favorites of mine here are two of the more graphic Miyazaki films, just because as brilliant as his more child-oriented stuff is, I enjoy a mature narrative and subject matter.
Why do you rank Nausicaa higher?
Of,
I was just gonna say, yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, why do you rank Nausicaa higher than Princess Mononoke? What's your reason for it?
It's that overall aesthetic and world building. A lot of it is the OST. There are moments in that OST that stick with me to an extremely powerful and resonant degree. And as perfectly utilized as Princess Mononoke's setting is, there's just something a bit more captivating and evocative about the setting of Nausicaa. I think it inspires the imagination a bit more. If you've played Dark Souls, Ash Lake is an area that has that sort of captivating appeal, and it's very, very reminiscent of a location in Nausicaa, to the point where you almost think it could be referenced. It's in Flip Flappers as well, that sort of a snowy white aesthetic with the giant trees.
I'm going to have to watch Nausicaa now, because I want to literally have a conversation actually with somebody who ranks it higher than Mononoke. I've never watched the movie, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
By the way, in terms of box office success, it was about 5 times higher grossing than Porco Rosso.
Yeah, I'd imagine Porco is one of the smaller ones.
Yeah, and it was around almost 10 times more than Kiki's.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah. It was pretty big.
Yeah.
Like, it's just when you compare it to the following films.
Yeah, if we're talking the big, the biggie bigs,
the monsters.
We're
Spirited
talking
Away.
The basic bitch tier now, like
yeah.
All the normies and their mums
Academy
have seen this
Award winner. And number 9 out of 11 on my list.
It came out in 2001 and it's ranked 9/11.
I'm going to go out and say it.
Honestly, it's...
Spirited Away, other than its graphics and a lot of...
No, Rush.
It's great.
This anime has great graphics.
Spirited Away, outside of its animation and its score, is the most boring piece of shit I've ever watched.
Oh, no! Oh, at least we...
Oh my god,
I'm not going to say
I
we
think
agree.
we're all on the same page with this movie.
Well, okay, I'll be the dissenting view here. Because I absolutely think Spirited Away is technical execution in every regard. Animation, the storytelling, it's great, and it sort of ticks all those boxes, certainly, that allowed it to win an Academy Award. It's got a thoroughly relatable coming of age character narrative going on. Nothing about it has really ever managed to resonate with or grab me to a particular degree. If we're talking about sort of like the divergence between how good something is and how much you like something, as much as I think that distinction is somewhat asinine in many cases, Spirited Away is certainly one where I feel like it's better than the level of enjoyment or attachment to that I get out of it is. There's just not much there for me.
Yeah. There is actually a really good video about Spirited Away. It's called Miyazaki, the Spielberg of Anime, by Soul Brothers No. 3. And as much as I agree with all of his points there, I don't like Steven Spielberg, And, he just uses Spirited Away as this Steven Spielberg representative, where for a lot of people, it resonates, clearly. It's a very poppy film, in terms of widespread appeal, but doesn't have that stuff to latch onto, Yeah.
No, I think we're in agreement on that point.
My one problem with Spirited Away is because, of course, it's the first Ghibli movie I actually saw, because what young girl in America does not just see like Studio Ghibli's freaking biggest work.
Yeah.
I always have had a big issue with award shows and the interest in presenting animation in this certain light versus other forms of media. And I feel that honestly, whenever I think of Spirited Away, I think of animation being patronized as a medium to tell stories through by the Western audiences. And the movie's not bad. I think the bathhouses specifically, and a lot of the beauty of the backgrounds and the environments, it really sticks through, like Princess Mononoke and, let's say, Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind and everything. I feel like a lot of the setting really fits. However, I find that a lot of the messages being told are either too esoteric and very easy for everybody to kind of connect with, and or just kind of surface level. A lot of the issues that I think Chihiro goes through. And let's be really honest, she's a spoiled fucking little bitch. Like, fuck Chihiro. I'm sorry.
I mean, the point is that she starts off at that point, and then she comes of age, and learns to move past that. She was modeled off of the 9-year-old daughter of one of Miyazaki's coworkers, I think.
Yeah.
And it's got imagery that stuck with a lot of people, No Face and various elements of the bathhouse, and I can observe them and sort of recognize, yeah, I understand how that's iconic, but it doesn't manage to stick with me in the way that the imagery of a lot of other Miyazaki works have done.
Like, the most interesting piece, I personally think, is the parts in the actual baths in the bathhouse with No Face and the like compromise of money. Everybody in their fucking edgy grandma has said this about Spirited Away having a sort of subplot about prostitution and the prostitution of young girls through Japanese media. Yeah. And I don't want to freaking, you can find that anywhere and talk about it anywhere, but I find it very interesting for such a story to be told in a fucking movie that's supposedly marketed to children over here. So take that as you will.
I think there may have been a Miyazaki interview where that came up, and he said like he hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, no, I bet he didn't. So,
but I could be wrong on that. I don't have particularly strong memories of that being the case.
But it's definitely a case of the author's intent kind of being misconstrued, rather, or just even if just expanded upon. I'm one of the firm believers that a author's work, while it is penultimate in some senses, can expand past him and his intents of it and tell different stories to others.
Yeah, I mean, it's a narrative about servitude, so in that sense, it's got application to, the particular service industry that is prostitution, even if it isn't sort of intentionally commenting upon that specific form of servitude specifically.
Yeah, definitely. Nevertheless, this movie, I think I can all hear it from your guys' voices. This movie, while it's highly acclaimed over here, and it's okay, it's not as it's all it's cracked up to be, rather, and yeah,
it's normie trash. That's what it is.
It's I hate to be that guy, but it is kind of the normie Miyazaki movie, to be really honest. Next to maybe Ponyo, but Ponyo has a lot more redeeming qualities to it.
I'd almost say like something like Princess Mononoke is more normie than Ponyo.
I will fight you in the fucking
Ponyo
street.
is more general audience, but
yeah.
Howl's Moving Castle. Ranked for me 11 out of 11.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And that is a fairly common sentiment. I mean, I feel like I'm not as down on Howl's as a number of other people are. To be honest, this sort of bottom bracket here is somewhat interchangeable. I think on a given day it could be swapped with Spirited Away or Castle in the Sky in these bottom three here.
What?
Because it does some neat things. Man, now that I think about it, maybe it's because the core of Howl's Moving Castle for me is Howl himself. And he's such an enchanting man. Just a really captivating character.
You want to put your hands through his beautiful red hair?
I'd like him to fly away with me, for sure.
in your beautiful umbrella and your dress.
Yeah.
Oh!
Please, oh, man. But, well, our main character here, she's neat. And the aging dynamic is, you know what? Wrong. Spirited Away. I'm redoing things on the fly. Spirited Away, number 11. Castle in the Sky, number 10. Howl's Moving Castle, number 9. Upon reflection, I like more of this movie. The Fire brand, he's really funny and charming. The castle's cool. Just narratively, I think, and it's adapted from a novel, there's more going on than the film can really show to us, and I feel like it gets somewhat lost in its own narrative, and that holds back a number of other elements of the film overall.
I think this movie is up there in especially I don't think people consider this a magical girl movie, but it definitely has magical girl elements, again, to the much because Hayao is an older sort, and
right.
He knows more about older anime, that a lot of his stories with females really harken back to, he probably wouldn't consider this magical girl himself, but a lot of the discography and the history of magical girl definitely sees it as that. One thing that really sticks out to me about this movie is personality. This movie has more personality, and honestly, I think does Kiki's delivery service better. The ending section of the movie, I will say though, is a little weak. But other than that, like, the strong beginning and the middle just make up for it, kind of. I love the concept of age, and especially with females in this movie particularly, because in any society, age for women is a big fucking concept. It's the change of not only your appearance and how people perceive you in society, but also the responsibilities you're given as a female in society, and the kind of the expectations you have of yourself. I really loved the concept of age and the fluctuation of it in this movie, and I don't think it's explored enough in media, to be honest, outside of superficial, like, villains, maybe in a side Batman movie or something. Especially Howl, just as a character, is interesting, but he's interesting for the same reason that Kamina from Gurren Lagann is interesting. He's a lot of this archetype of this certain idea of a male in media, and that sticks out a lot to some people. I remember that, again, I'm quoting back to Jessie Otaku so much because I remember watching the movies all together with her back in her like, I think it's Disney December or something, I can't remember, and she commented about how the kind of character that rather Howl is on the outside is very reminiscent of the pretty boys that were in popular media at the time of 2004. Yeah. A lot of this movie has a quotation rather on appearance, and the interest of divulging rather those appearances and the facades we put on as people, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is the chance for you guys to go and say something.
Yeah, it's just, I think we're paranoid because of our experience early on with you cutting out. We never know if you've gone silent. If
It's
that's...
okay.
You haven't cut out or you just being done.
Hey, makes editing better.
I think part of why my feelings on this film are as tough to pin down as they are is because it's probably far and away the most uneven of Miyazaki's films. All of them tend to be fairly solid, whereas there's a lot of highs and lows here. And the highs are definitely high, and not to be discounted. There's just a number of elements that also hold it back. I think to delve deeper into how captivating Howl is, this film did have some of those iconic sequences that stuck with me from my childhood, specifically Howl fighting sort of in the flaming sky near the end of the film there. A hurting and broken man to a degree. There's a lot to dig into with this film for sure. What do you think about it, Joji?
I think that, like, while it just has a lot of interesting things in it to me, because I've only ever watched this as a small babby child, like.
Okay.
Like, I last watched this probably 10 years ago, but elements of it have stuck with me. Like, I remember having this magazine which had a poster for it in it, and just, like, looking at that poster a lot, just because of, like, how the castle looked and stuff. Yeah.
I don't think we've talked really about how the castle is a character in itself, and the iconicness, rather, of that castle. Because it's definitely a centerpiece that a lot of people I've heard talked about, but I think it's cool. I mean, it's a witch's house. Like, what can you really say about it outside of, like, it's really cool? It's not like the bathhouse. Yeah. It's not the forest in Princess Mononoke, but it's nevertheless cool. So
Calcifer, that was his name. It's just
he's a baby.
He's great.
He's so cute. I love him.
Baby.
He's a big baby. He's a lesser baby, as we
honestly
would say.
Yeah, I think after Kaoru,
God, lesser babies and higher babies. What has happened?
We were so good. We left out all the PCP memes until now. Outside of Kaoru, Howl was sort of a next integral step in turning me gay.
Yeah. I've one of the things I was gonna say is this movie is fucking gay. Like, holy shit.
Well, a lot of females my age, I know, really put this movie in high regard in my circles. I don't get it personally. I think there's maybe it's just because they just haven't watched a lot more Ghibli than me, but like I do kind of understand the appeal. It's very poppy. But on the other hand, it's like a good poppy. It isn't like Spirited Away where it doesn't have any substance in it.
Yeah. So the author of the original novel, I think, was somewhat unhappy with this because it didn't quite capture the spirit of her work.
Oh.
I think. There were a few novel adaptations Ghibli did. And yeah, it's definitely messy at points. But nonetheless, it's a Ghibli movie. Ponyo! Number 4 out of 11.
Our ratings. For me, it was 10.
Oh, okay,
11, by the way. Yeah. Spirited Away was 9 out of 11.
It's a 3 for me. It's like 3 out of 10. I mean, 3 out of 11, rather. Like, on the list. It's like my top 3.
And Ponyo's number 4 for me. It's just sort of pure joy conveyed through animation. It's just animation as an expression of this singular sensation. It's really a remarkable.
Pick your words carefully,
film,
boys. I know
think.
Digi's watching this, and if he hears anything bad about it,
Well, I think it appeals to him in this same manner. It's got so much heart. It's fairly simple film.
Yeah.
But it conveys those simple ideas with such remarkable execution that you can't help but be endeared to it.
I think, while I've kind of avoided this because mainly the soundtracks that I like are Isao Takahata movies,
Right.
Especially I think Ponyo has one of the most standout soundtracks. I think a lot of Ponyo kind of reminds me of Lilo and Stitch in its appeal over here, to be really honest. I don't know why. Maybe a
Because
little
they
bit.
have water.
Well, it feels very Hawaiian, kind of, a little bit, very coastal, and that's kind of something I love about
Coastal
it.
for sure.
It's like they put Lilo and Stitch, The Little Mermaid, and Hayao Miyazaki in a blender, and then we got
if you're
this.
talking The Little Mermaid, Masaki Yuasa's upcoming film, Lou Over the Wall, or something like that, I think, has drawn a lot of comparisons to Ponyo. If you see the trailer, you'll know exactly why.
Yeah.
But some of the sequences of especially the water animation, just stunning. For a time in my youth, I wanted to become a marine biologist because undersea life is so beautiful and fascinating, and this captures that to a remarkable degree as well. Nothing too special going on narratively, but our pair of leads here are just the most adorable little couple you'll ever see. A great anime mom. Nothing more you could ask for out of an enjoyable all ages film.
I think definitely that, like, I think there's actually a lot more going on, honestly, with the two leads a bit more than, like, Totoro, for exact. Because, like, I feel that Hayao writes children in a very interesting light as, like, fully nuanced characters.
Yep.
That's what the Spielberg of anime video is all about. Oh god, I need to get you to link it, Locke.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the description.
I'm just talking specifically.
And then
for my
additionally,
own.
I almost forgot this. I think this might be my little brother's favorite Ghibli film. He was like 5 or 6 when he first watched it. He's 9 now. And I think Ponyo might be his waifu because he was just incredibly endeared to her as a character watching it, and it was a joy to watch him watch this movie and enjoy it as much as he did. And I think that even deepened my appreciation for the film.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember as a child, there was this film, it's called Help, I'm a Fish. And it had the trailer for Ponyo on it. And I always wanted to watch Ponyo as a little kid. And probably if I did, I would have a much larger appreciation for it.
For Help, I'm a Fish.
But it's just a really... Yeah, it's like a Denmark film, like it's made in Denmark, and then it was
so
dubbed in English.
stupid. I love it.
And it has Alan Rickman in it.
What?
Yeah.
Help! I'm a fish and I can't get up.
It had this really great song. It's like, help, I'm a fish in the deep blue sea.
I'm done.
Won't somebody save me? I'm an itty bitty fish in the deep blue sea. Will
That's our new
help
theme
me?
song. Play that. New theme song.
Yeah. So
We'll have that as the outro. Edit that in. Put that as
I
the
will.
outro for this.
I'm gonna be
podcast.
editing
Find it on
this
YouTube.
episode.
God damn.
So yeah, Ponyo, I never got to watch it as a kid, but then when I watched it when I was like 16, I thought, hey, that's pretty good. That's a good movie. I like it. It's very comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Ponyo is gorgeous, and a lot of the characters are really cute. The mom especially really sticks out to me. Nevertheless, while, again, it's a problem of the later Ghibli movies just kind of being... me not resonating with the messages and the characters, rather. I can understand, like, the theme of love and being by people you love and wanting to stay with them. But other than that, really, I don't know. I'm okay with Ponyo. I think it's cool.
It's definitely a film I didn't connect to that much on any sort of thematic level, or even really a particularly emotional or character level. It's just the pure experience of animation sort of distilled down to an extremely perfect essence that carries it for me.
As far as the I hear everybody and their fucking mom talk about this movie in the Ghibli discography. I feel like Ponyo kind of ends it at this point in time. I hear my little sister loves Ponyo. A lot of little kids love Ponyo.
It's an incredible children's movie.
It's
beyond
fantastic.
anything else. It's just a wonderful children's film.
Talking about
Similarly to Totoro.
You go ahead, Joji.
Yeah, I know my mum really likes this movie. Like, she just kind of, like, watches Ponyo a lot. And I mean, like, she watched Akira subtitled back in, like, the 1980s. So, my mum's into anime, believe it or not. Even though she hasn't watched Ava yet. I need to force her to. But she really likes Ponyo, and she's watched it quite a few times.
This may be a bit presumptive, but maybe it's, maybe some of the appeal also for you is that it's very based by the sea, and a lot of people, like, again, Australians are very based by the coastline, and a lot of people might connect with that a bit more. I don't know, like, it could be that also, and the interest, rather, that your culture, society, I don't know.
Your people.
Has interest in, rather, the preservation of life, and especially marine life. While over here it might not connect with me as much, because, again, I live inland, so I don't know. It's kind of a food for thought thing, rather.
Yeah, no,
that's like, just a theory.
A game theory!
A Wind Rises theory. Number 6 out of 11.
Oh, we're not doing Arrietty or Up on Poppy Hill?
Those aren't Miyazaki.
Those aren't directed.
Oh, are they not?
Well, from Up on Poppy Hill is Goro Miyazaki.
Oh, yeah, shit, because he was trying to pass over the buck.
Yeah.
I forgot. I'm gonna just poke really in. Arrietty's boring. Up on Poppy Hill has like turnaround incest. There we go. We're good. All right. Wind Rises.
We'll have it in other Ghibli's podcast. We'll go into greater depth. But yeah, Wind Rises. 6 out of 11 for me. The top of that sort of middle range of Ghibli or Miyazaki films, and one that I do need to rewatch. I think I've only seen it twice, both viewings in fairly quick succession with each other. A rather different film than a lot of Miyazaki's other works, and a really interesting one because of it. It's a biopic of the man who designed the Japanese Zero Fighter, and it's a really solid period piece, a great, I think, character piece. There's really no negatives I can think of here in particular. It just doesn't quite stand out as much as some of the other Miyazaki films, and that could be in part just due to it being more recent and me not having as much of a connection to it because of that. But certainly,
I want to force everyone to watch the Japanese version of it.
I've watched.
So you can get Hideaki Anno voicing the main character.
Because like Hideaki Anno is such a good choice of voice for this character.
It's perfect.
I feel like I think Hideaki Anno is like a perfect voice for a character that is a nerd in any way.
Well, specifically, I think Hayao Miyazaki's reasoning that he gave was that Anno has this sort of sad quality to his voice that suited Jiro perfectly.
Yeah. No, I can feel that. Like, yeah. Oh, man. This is actually one of my preferred Miyazaki movies. I definitely think it's, like, up there. Probably number 4 for me. Just, like... Yeah.
So, to kind of set a scene again, once again, I watched this movie literally when it came out. I went to movie theaters and went and saw this. I was a lucky camper.
Nice.
And this is the period where everybody thought for the 50 billionth time that Miyazaki was going to retire. And this is the first serious time that I've been an anime fan that I thought he was going to retire. And I went into this movie fucking like it was a memorial service.
Yeah.
It was fucking great. And I think this is especially a case of the mindset that I went into the movie totally fucking like made it. And what puts it at my 2 of like 11. The Wind Rises is... I've said this over and over again throughout this whole podcast. I'm very into the Isao Takahata work, mainly because I'm actually, as I've gotten older, well, I do like fairy tales. I'm really interested in the presentation of fictionalized people and the like grounded reality that we live in while applied to those kind of fairy tale elements. I went to the theater and saw this with a friend, and I bawled through the whole fucking thing, and I loved it because I connected so much with a lot of like, because I write and that's my main passion in life. I applied it most of the aircraft stuff to writing and like the struggles that Jiro went through to create the things that he did, and just try and build his life rather, and it really resonated to me on a creative level, I think, rather. It's a great movie. I think, honestly, it beats the crap out of Porco Rosso by a mile, but for very different reasons. So.
You definitely may be right there, to be honest. And I think Wind Rises is one of the chief among Miyazaki's films that's got a lot to ruminate on and digest. There's more there to do that for that I haven't done so yet with this film. And then beyond that, the visuals are really fantastic. You can definitely see the sort of the influence of Ponyo, where there's a lot of that bright sort of full frame animation that Ponyo had a good deal of here. A lot more sort of animated background work in a lot of scenes that Ghibli didn't have a ton of up until Ponyo.
A lot of the Wind Rises, and what sticks out to me is because I guess I'm very into self-advancement movies and like the advancement of characters through their dreams. I'm a big fan of Ratatouille, and I think it's actually one of the best like Pixar movies ever made, period. I love that movie so much.
Brad Bird is just so good.
Oh God, where's Incredibles? Where's Incredibles 2? I'm gonna come and just shove a freaking
Cyberpunk 2077 of anime.
Put your butt in the fucking chair and make that fucking movie, I swear. But seriously, the idea of a character who struggles throughout his whole life of creating these pieces of work, and rather the dichotomy of the wants and needs for that piece of work, being that what he's creating is art, and it's rather a tool, and the tool can be for good or bad. It can be used for war, or it can be used for the advancement and the transportation of others, and there's a lot of a pensive nature about the ideas that are presented in this movie, I think, especially.
Yeah, there's a level of tension and unease running throughout, and part of that is the backdrop of World War II and the handful of natural disasters that we see befall Japan over the course of the film. And some of it is more personal, like his fiancée and then wife's sort of recurring illness. And all of those elements tie into the more deeply personal unease about his art and what exact purpose it's serving. So it's really excellent in that regard, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you talk, Joji. I haven't really let you talk yet, so you go ahead.
Everyone gotta see this film. It's a good film, and and then you gotta go watch The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness, because it's also
That's
a very
the
good
best
film.
Miyazaki movie.
I like the
It
animation in
definitely
it.
is, in my opinion. It just shines so much light on him
My
as a
favorite
person.
characters. It's got Hideaki Anno. It's got Hayao Miyazaki. It's got the best characters in anime.
Here's the thing. Anno has actually been an anime character before that movie, because he was in the anime adaptation of what was it called? Insufficient Direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But never was the character of Hideaki Anno as fully realized as in Kingdom of Dreams and Madness.
We're actually seriously going to be talking about Kingdom of Dreams and Madness.
Which, for those audience members who are unaware, is the Studio Ghibli documentary film.
That wasn't a statement, motherfucker. That was a question. Are we seriously going to do this?
Behind the scenes. I don't
Yeah.
I think we've...
Fuck it. I'm talking about it.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit more about Boro the Caterpillar, though. Just a tiny bit before we end.
we can do that. We can
Okay.
do that
Yeah,
too.
sure.
Okay.
Fuck it, 2 hour special. Let's go, boys.
All right,
Mirage here.
I haven't seen Kingdom
Hi,
of
boys,
Dreams.
Mirage.
Don't do this to me. Hi, boys. Kingdoms
The
of
meme
Dreams
will
and
live on.
Madness. I have not seen the full movie. I have seen very large snippets of it, and I love it so far. I love we don't get to see a lot of peek holes into the Japanese industry of actually creating stuff, and I think that's why shows like Shirobako especially stand out. But this is a great, from what I've seen, it's a pretty great, it's just a great documentary. It's just really interesting.
Yeah. And sort of the number of memes that have spawned speak to this to a degree. But Miyazaki is just a gold mine for fantastic quotes. So many fantastic lines, be it sort of pieces of philosophical introspection or comments upon the industry, or just little personal quips. He's hilarious.
He's definitely the grumpy old mentor character in the anime industry, especially. He knows how to do the craft. He's good at it, but he doesn't respect it one fucking bit, and he wants to get better at it.
Yeah, man. I love this movie, man. Kingdom of Dreams and Madness. Just, oh man, I cried while watching it.
Whoa! I
cried a lot. Because I love Arno. Arno is my boy. He's my wife. I love him.
Is there a lot of Anno in this movie?
Snuggle him all day. He made me gay. And the Kingdom of Dreams of Madness just has so many insights to him and into Miyazaki and their relationship. A lot of people talk about Hayao Miyazaki rarely being pictured as a father. Especially when he was raising Goro, he was very private, all that kind of stuff. And yet, when I see him in the same room as Arno, not only do they look like best friends, they look like they're family members.
Aww.
And it's just oh man, I love both of them so much. And it's just you got my boy, and you got my granddad, and I just want to hug them. I want to hug them both. Throughout this entire movie, they're sitting there, they're playing with planes. I'm just dude, I want to play with planes. Dude, if I saw fucking Arno sitting next to Hayao Miyazaki with a plane, I'd fucking join in. I mean, I'd probably piss my pants and start screaming. But, like,
Autistic screeching.
yeah, autistic screeching. I would, But, like, I just... Oh, man, I'm getting emotional! Fuck! Dude. I don't even know, man. It's just... I love them. I love them both. I'm... And it reminds me of Help, I'm Official, lad. There we go. It's good. It's good, and right now it's 2 a.m. and I drank an entire bottle of Little Fat Lamb.
Oh no.
I am very drunk.
We've got drunk, emotional Joji. Crying into his vodka here.
It's okay, buddy. We're gonna put you in bed. You sit here. You just yell. Type us your ideas, and we'll let you know if they're okay.
But like, I love this. It's just Miyazaki and Arno, and they're close, and it goes through so much of like the specific ethos that is like distilled in the way that that Ghibli works, because, you know, like, the industry as a whole is incestuous, you know, it's a bunch of guys fucking their sisters.
Whoa.
You know. Sorry, top 5 incest anime hasn't come out yet, but, like, it's all, you know, how do I put this? Okay, Evangelion, right? I'm going back to this one. Anno and Rei is Shinji is Anno, and Rei is like the industry is large, and then Asuka is like Miyazaki, right?
What?
Joji, I think you're drunk.
I think we're
Go
starting
home.
a new meme, and
um,
I don't think it's safe to start this one. So we're gonna close this door and go on to Boro and the Caterpillar.
Boro the Caterpillar.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Boro the Caterpillar. That's his swan song, isn't
Yeah.
it?
No,
Yeah.
I think he's legitimately actually getting back into the industry. I think he's going to come back, to be really honest.
Yeah.
I don't think he's
It,
leaving anytime soon again.
It's cool. I like it.
Okay, so we're gonna sit you down. Alright. What I've seen aboard the Caterpillar, I get a lot of reminiscence, looking forward to the movie of Princess Mononoke, and a lot of its extrapolations of critters, and especially like wildlife. I'm really, as a Princess Mononoke fag, I'm really looking forward to this fucking movie. I'm getting very Bambi vibes to it.
Have you seen the short film that was sort of the initial instance of
I've seen
Boro
it.
the Caterpillar?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's really
Okay,
cool.
I haven't seen that yet. But,
it's just a lot of animation fidelity and just the beauty of, like, it's so cool. This is going to be, if anything, the movie that teachers will pull into class and will teach kids about metamorphosis with creatures, to be really
that's
honest.
cool. Yeah.
And you know, some people may be like, oh, ho-hum, you know, it's not old school Ghibli, it's not the big adventure movies, it's not any of that. I think people need to be in the mindset, like, fucking, how old is Hayao Miyazaki now? Hayao Miyazaki
He's
is fucking...
80?
Yeah, he's fucking old. Don't fucking expect that much from the poor guy.
Don't push him, guys. Let him do what he does.
Well, he's a master in his own craft, but he's getting older.
Anything beyond this point, we're getting on borrowed time here. Just
yeah,
He's 76. Yeah,
I think this is going to actually
pretty
be
old.
Yeah, I think this is going to definitely be the period in his work, in his life as a creator, that we're going to see the most experimental and interesting, like, movies by far.
yeah.
This one's CG, isn't it?
Yes.
Or at least partially.
There's actually a lot of talk from Hayao about how he's learning right now to work with pens in CG with, like, tablets, and it's quite interesting to listen to him talk about it. He has to have other people from the studio come over and help him at his desk, and he's like, how do I do this? Teach me how to control Z. So I love him. He's so cute.
Yeah. Because he's been looking into a lot of simulation, like computing for this.
Yeah.
For like doing baseline CG animation to like actually replicate this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what led to his rant about the AI that does the wriggling with human corpses.
An affront to life itself.
Yeah. Even though he does look a lot into simulation, his simulations are always like based off of reality as opposed to like physics. Yeah.
Well,
That's
I
cool.
think definitely the thing also, coming into context with that quote, the thing people have to be more mindful about with Hayao is that while he's a hard-assed old man, he's a nature dude. He loves life. He loves the creatures that live on this earth. He has a high appreciation for nature and the things that we have to preserve in order to keep our earth being the way it is for the centuries it has. And the idea of death, or rather the presentation of death in media, isn't his favorite thing in the world.
Well, was just I think it's sort of a Hidetaka Miyazaki style philosophy. He's the director of the Dark Souls games, where it's nobility even in sort of a sorrowful state. So the famous example is there's a design in that game called the decaying dragon or something, which are these old sort of vomiting dragons that are just sort of dying and wasting away, and the initial designs offered up for them were these kind of gross oozing pus type things, but he wanted there to be a nobility to them in their suffering, and so it's less even the CG in that short clip there that Miyazaki was disgusted with, but the perversion and what he perceived as a lack of respect for life. It wasn't like seeking to portray deformity in a meaningful manner. It was just seeking to sort of be as gross and horrifying as it could be, and that's what really bothered him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, some people may characterize it as him just overreacting and being an old grumpy man, but I definitely think it really speaks to his personality rather as a creator and what he wants out of media rather than what he respects. He's very old school in his interests, and he just wants to put the most positive message, honestly, on the screen. That's his main interest, which is pretty cool, to be honest. You don't see that a lot nowadays, especially.
Yeah. He just wants to see the world be a better place, and he does that through making really cute caterpillars now.
See it through eyes unclouded by hatred.
Yeah, and that's where we should end the podcast.
Circle. The Hayao Miyazaki podcast.
Thanks by
we're gonna put Joji to bed.
User of our Google form.
Yeah, another user suggested topic, so head down into the description, find the form, and suggest your own if you want. Maybe it'll be made into a podcast. See
Everybody needs to watch Help I'm a Fish.
Bye, guys. It's Mirage. It's me. Goodbye. Have a good day.
Bye, boys. It's Mirage here.
Hey, boys. Goodbye.